I did want to ask you about something I've been reading. Tony Khan did an interview, and he had some interesting quotes. I want to get your take. With all this going on, all this locker room drama, and I want to remind everyone, right before the CM Punk Young Bucks drama, Tony Khan did an interview saying all that stuff wasn't a big problem, all the backstage issues. It was all being blown out of proportion. People like me and Jim were just making stuff up. He didn't say that, but if you're saying what we're saying isn't true, we're making stuff up, which is fucking ridiculous, and you know better. But here's an interview he just did. I have an article from Wrestling Inc. by Dominic D'Angelo with some transcription here. Tony Khan on Busted Open, talking about some of the criticism about how he's been building his shows. Here's a quote. I see some of the stuff people say, and I always want to take anything in good faith from the fans. But I do see a lot of people adjacent to the WWE in bad faith talking about the level of build. Well, there's a lot of build around a lot of these matches. And it's also, go back and watch an old wrestling show from the 80s or 90s, and sometimes you'll see two wrestlers wrestling for a spot, wrestling for the win, winner's purse.
What?
He was referring to some of the matches on AEW because people are questioning why. People are questioning his booking more than ever before.
But I don't even know what he's saying. I've been booking for 30 fucking years. I did not understand that fucking just wrestlers wrestling. Is it? Yes. Imagine that. Wrestlers wrestling on a wrestling program.
Actually, it says here, Khan was referring to some of the card for tonight's Dynamite as of last night, with Wardlow issuing an open challenge for the TNT Championship, which Brian Cage accepted only yesterday.
Jesus
and
Christ.
Darby Allin versus Jay Lethal's also happening. And then the quote here is, that is a trope in wrestling that needs to continue to be a thing, Khan continued.
What?
You can call it a cold match if you want, but sometimes things start out of new issues. Not everything is going to have weeks or months of build going into it, although a lot of stuff should. And then the final quote here was the one a lot of people were sending us. In spite of these critiques, Khan also made it clear that he has his eyes on the prize of Dave Meltzer's Booker of the Year.
Oh, good God.
Noting he has 3 months left to take the honor home. Here's a quote. I'm going to make a full court press to get it, and I'm going to let people know right now. There's been a lot of build to a lot of this stuff, and if people have been telling me there hasn't, they're completely full of shit, or they're just not paying attention.
Oh, my God. That's the fans' fault. So much there. First of all, he's talking about cold matches. A cold match is a match between two guys. Now I kind of see what he's trying to impart there. A cold match is a match between two guys with no angle behind it or no rivalry or no ill will. It's just Brian versus Jim. Let's see who's going to win. That's a cold match. And yes, I would say in the territory days, 95% of the television matches were cold matches because you didn't give your angles or your big matches or your money matches or your title matches away on television for free. You made the people buy a ticket to see them in the arena. So the comparison is not valid to begin with there. Secondly, my God, there's a difference between having a cold match of people. It makes sense. It makes sense for wrestler A to wrestle wrestler B if one guy's a babyface and the other guy's a heel and they're both of similar level on the card and whatever the case, but it doesn't make any sense. And this is where he may be talking about people complaining no build, like we talked about earlier in the program. He had Andre in a mask versus career match against a guy he had never wrestled before. It makes no sense to do that. It's like we go to the movies and the new Rocky movie is out and they lead the fucking movie with the goddamn main event fight scene where Rocky wins. What are you going to follow it with? But unfortunately, Tony has learned about booking like he's learned about everything else in wrestling, from either reading the internet or from talking to his friends in the locker room. And he doesn't understand some of the terminology that he uses, or that when it may be the proper terminology, but it's not something that's applicable to the situation he's discussing. And if he's For the next 3 months, he's going to put on a full court press to win Booker of the Year. That means for the past 9 months, he's had pay-per-views, he's had giant gates in brand new cities, and he's had national television, but he hadn't really been trying to win. The most important thing is to win Booker of the Year, a made-up award from a guy that likes him anyway, and he's going to be the winner to begin with because there are no other Bookers anywhere. So I don't know what to say.
When people talk about ways to fix AEW, ways to improve backstage issues, ways to improve the format of the TV show, ways to improve the TV show itself, do you think them and we are being naive because we're missing the big issue, which is this is not a company, and I'm not saying this as a shot or anything, but this is not a company that was built to be a wonderful, successful company. If it becomes a wonderful, successful company, and they've made money, they've spent a lot on a video game, but beyond that, they've made money and they've had some pretty impressive feats. Those are kind of happenstance. Those are kind of, it's nice that that's happened. This whole thing was made to be Tony Khan's project. It wasn't like I love wrestling, I want to start up a company, I want to fund it, I want the right people to run it. It was, I love wrestling, I want to do it now. This is all mine. And again, I'm not even saying this as a shot, but that's just the reality of it. Tony has his hands all over this thing, and it's such a mess because he won't let go of any of it because it's his project. The whole reason it exists is for him to play with it.
Even if he believes that the guys are his friends, and even if some of them are legitimately his friends, that's fine. That's wonderful. However, he's not the guy to run the company because he's not the guy to tell wrestlers what to do. And that's who you need, somebody, regardless of who it is, to tell, not to ask them what they'd like to do, tell them what to do. Somebody that they respect enough that they will listen. And somebody that is either experienced enough, pragmatic enough, honest with themselves enough to put the right people in positions, even if it's people they don't like. And I'm not just talking about wrestlers. I'm talking about his office staff. Megan, his little legal girl there.
Mega, not Megan, Mega.
Okay, so her parents didn't know how to spell Megan. It's not my fault.
Stop it.
What experience does she have in the wrestling industry? What experience does she have in the entertainment business? Nick Khan, the other Khan, is a Hollywood wheeler and dealer and deal maker that has experience and has on speed dial every goddamn major corporation and entertainment outlet in California and et cetera, et cetera. And Megan was doing legal for a football team and a soccer team, I guess. We haven't mentioned that Matt Jackson's wife was in charge of merchandise at I guess she still is. She was at the very start. We haven't heard of that being changed.
And what does that entail? Because if Pro Wrestling Tees is actually the one facilitating all the t-shirts, is she just a liaison, or what does her position actually entail?
Well, I don't know. And I've never bought any AEW merchandise. But if they have some, and if they're trying to sell it, I would probably go after somebody with a lot of years experience in marketing and merchandising a fucking mainstream sports league or professional fucking entertainment company or
Cirque du
Soleil or a major brand. Not I've done my own merchandise, probably more than the Bucks lately, for years now, and I wouldn't accept nor entertain the idea of going for a job as the head of merchandise in a major company. I'm just across the board. It comes down to what you said. Tony wanted to do this because he's a big wrestling fan and he had the money to buy his company so he could fulfill his teenage fantasies of being the booker and running it. And you're seeing the result of that. We mentioned before there were a ton of people, a ton of fans that wanted to get even with Vince McMahon for the way he's treated their favorite wrestlers and wanted to support another company. And they still do. But to grow that into something that would be competitive to the WWE is a whole different fucking issue. And compounding the problem is the lack of experience at every turn in this company who's trying to navigate these shark-infested waters. And the fact that you have two sides. You have legitimate pro wrestlers that look at this as a business and want to make money, and you have the indie set that came from Reseda and thinks it's all a clown show and that they're the head clowns and they've been replaced and they don't even realize it. And they still want to be clowns. And those sides are not going to get along. And nobody's there to bring everything together. And the most important thing is, everybody in Crockett Promotions didn't like Dusty Rhodes as a person. But there was no way that anybody could deny that he was one of the two biggest stars in the wrestling business that wasn't working for Vince McMahon. And the other one was Ric Flair, and we had him too. And Dusty was the booker and Flair was the world champion, and each at one point wanted to be where the other one was. But they were professional enough to work together, and the point is, everybody else in the locker room said, I may be really good, but I ain't as good as Dusty or Flair because I've not drawn that much money. I can't cut those promos. I haven't been in that position. I want to be. But they could follow those guys because they, even egotistical wrestlers, couldn't legitimately sit there and look themselves in the mirror and say, I'm a bigger deal than Dusty Rhodes or Ric Flair. So they followed those guys into battle as the generals because they all universally believed that they belonged there. Even if people got mad at Dusty the way he booked them, or even if people got mad at Flair because he didn't see him at whatever level. And there's no general here. Who would you follow into battle?
You're asking Triple H, Dusty Rhodes, or Tony Khan?
Yes.
I wouldn't follow Tony Khan.
He would be the third choice.
He'd be the best funded, but he did that interview where I guess it may have been the press scrum. I forget if we talked about this or not, but he talked about the fact that the way he thinks from his days as a bartender to now is he's a service person. It's all about servicing either the customer or the person you're dealing with. That's different than being
the boss.
The boss and someone who's a leader.
The boss hires people that are good at customer service because you want the customers happy. But the boss is not the one out there fucking blowing each and every one of them. Tony's getting serviced, or he's getting serviced by his entire roster.
Oh, okay. I thought there would be another line after that, but
no, Tony is getting serviced by he's getting bent over and serviced well by his entire roster. And he doesn't know a fucking thing to do about it.
Well, he has nothing to worry about. He has Chris Jericho by his side. Nothing could go wrong now.
The head service technician.
The head service technician.